Nami groans as she reaches to turn off her phone alarm in a sloppy manner. Her typical day is shown through the perspective of her phone as she checks her schedule. After a night out with friends, she takes the bus home but sleeps and almost misses her stop. As she panics to alert the bus driver to halt, she drops her phone without realizing before exiting. The device sits there for some time untouched, till an incoming notification lights it up, which draws the attention of a stranger who picks it up. The following morning, Jun-young prepares breakfast as he sits to eat, and the phone he picked up the previous night begins to vibrate. He goes to check, and it's an incoming call from Nami's best friend Yoon-ju. He picks up and uses a female voice recording to have a conversation about how best to return the phone. All the while he was making notes. Jun-young does a social media search on Nami, and the phone gets a notification alerting him that she's been tagged in a photo. He quickly searches for the tagger to get further information. Meanwhile, Yoon-ju makes her way to her friend's house where she finds her hungover and lying under a platform outside. She quietly watches in amusement as Nami frantically runs around the house looking for her phone and even takes pictures. Yoon-ju finally tells her of the situation, and shortly after, Jun-young receives a call from the phone owner. They agree to meet at her family coffee shop, which is prompted by the information the guy has found. After the call ends, he tries to access her phone using her birth date, which he got from his investigations, but it doesn't work. He uses the Hulk method and smashes the phone screen. Elsewhere in the mountain, the senior officer Ji-man has been called when the heavy rain unearths a body, but it also washed away all the evidence. However, one of the teams finds a capsule of tree nutrients that were buried with the victim, but they don't think it's related. This intrigues Ji-man, so he makes his way deeper into the forest to find the tree that he and his son planted years ago. To his surprise, someone has recently topped up the tree's nutrients for it. With that, Ji-man's partner feels like Ji-man's son is the main suspect since he ran away from the senior officer's home years back. But his father can't jump to that conclusion with circumstantial evidence, but Ji-man plans to look for him. During that interval, Nami comes in for her shift at the coffee shop, where she is teased a little because she lost her phone. It is revealed that it has become public knowledge because Yoon-ju posted it. The shop phone rings, and it's Jun-young impersonating a woman again. He tells her that he has accidentally broken the phone screen and has left it at a repair shop. The service has already been paid for, and all she has to do is pick it up. He gives her the address, and she later makes her way there and finds her broken phone on the counter. Jun-young comes out with his face covered and gives her a repair form to fill, which requests her password. After he gets the information, he takes the phone to the back to complete the repair, but he gains access to the phone and installs spy software and mirrors the device to one of his. He brings out the repaired phone. She's impressed with his workmanship and thanks him before leaving. Jun-young now has full access to the phone's features, as he can see exactly what she's doing on the phone. She gets back to her family cafe where she later plays games when it's less busy. Jun-young comes in and requests a plumade, which surprises her because it's not on the menu. He pretends to be a regular customer who has had it in the past. She makes one for him after a little hesitation and brings it to his table only to find him playing the same game she likes. Her father walks in to find them talking and calls his daughter over to comment on the new guy, but she tells him that he's a regular, which confuses him because he doesn't recognize him. She clocks out before her father can talk. That night, when Nami goes to bed, Jun-young goes through her phone till daybreak. All seems normal when her alarm wakes her up, but her stalker has gained a wealth of information on her. This is evident with the pages of notes. He finds out that she runs a secret account with a large following, and Nami exposes her company products on that account. He comments that he can use it against her, and lists 3 people he must cut off from her, namely Yoon-ju, her father, and her boss. Jun-young changes the laptop screensaver from his last victim to his next. All the while, Nami rushes to work and begins her day as normal when she is called by her boss, who informs her that the business is doing well, and she wants to double her salary for her hard work and devotion since the founding of the company. The boss alerts her not to inform the others for now, as they will get their raises when things improve further. The stalker hears everything. While she's at work taking pictures, Jun-young gains access to her apartment to gather more information about her, and finds her second phone, which he compromises before returning it. During that interval, Ji-man has lunch with his wife and brings up their runaway son. He wants to know if she has heard from him, but their conversation is interrupted when he receives a call. He leaves to meet his partner, who gives him a lead to where his son could be staying. The senior officer locates his apartment through the delivery man and breaks in to begin his search while vlogging. He finds various pieces of evidence tying him to the victim, like nail polish, among other things. Unbeknownst to him, his son comes home and immediately suspects that someone is in his apartment, so he doesn't enter, and instead goes outside to pry from the window. He takes a picture of his dad and sends it to him saying hello. This causes Jiman to rush out onto the streets to look for him, but finds no one. He receives more pictures of himself at his current location. Jiman finds the place where the pictures are taken, only to find an automated setup. He gets another message showing the apartment being flooded, which causes him to rush back, but by the time he gets there, all the evidence is destroyed. Junyong casually leaves with a single suitcase with his essentials. He makes his way to the family cafe where he is attended to by Nami's dad. Her father tells him that the plumade is not a menu item, but decides to make it for him anyway. He pretends to remember that he is a regular and hints that he knows all their faces. This makes the stalker a little uncomfortable, but he takes a seat to wait for his order. Turns out that he also came to buy a vintage CD from Nami, and she recognizes him as the plumade guy from the previous day. They do the transaction, and Junyong wants to sell some tickets to her favorite baseball team. The stalker already knows that she wants to go, so she buys them from him. Her father interrupts the conversation and asks him to leave after giving his order. They later close the shop, and he drops his daughter off and warns her to stay away from Yunyang because of the weird vibes he gives. Nami assures her dad that she has nothing to do with the guy, but the dad is persistent, which leads to an argument between the two. The stalker has been listening in the whole time. She dozes off when she gets inside, but is woken up by loud banging that scares her. The person opens her door, and it is revealed that it's Yoon-ju messing with her. She has come to stay for a couple of days after fighting with her mother because she failed a promotion interview. She thanks Nami for offering to host her, which confuses her because she doesn't recall doing so. She put it to the back of her mind as she chills with her friend. They even talk about her interest in Junyong, who is listening, as she says he would be nicer if he got a haircut and removed the glasses. While she is preoccupied, he sends a message on her behalf apologizing to her father. The old-timer is happy to see this. He then tricks him to download the software, allowing him to gain access to the father's phone. That night, Junyong gets his address and knocks him out after luring him to the front gate with a fake delivery. He drags the dad back inside, and as he apprehends him, his phone notifies him that Nami followed her dad. All the while, another heavy downpour reveals more bodies at the crime scene, causing the police to swarm there like flies. The following day, Nami wakes and realizes that she overslept. She sees the missed calls from her boss and quickly rushes to work. While in a cab, she looks at her phone properly and sees that her boss is asking if she's the bad-mouthing account before telling her to take down the picture of the team. Nami opens the account to see that her unknown stalker included her secret raise in the caption. She arrives to work, and the environment is rightfully hostile. She tries to lie that she was hacked, but the boss doesn't believe her and just pushes her out of the office. Nami goes to the police station to open an investigation, but there is not enough evidence. Junyong crosses her father, and the boss's name off the list. All that's left is the best friend. The dad regains consciousness, and the stalker shows him the message sent to his daughter stating that the shop won't open that day. The old-timer promises to end him for his actions and warns him not to hurt his daughter, but Junyong finds the threat amusing. The girls give him the perfect opportunity when they call him to help them find the hacker. During the sale of the CD, he gave her a business card that indicated he worked in the security sector. He meets them at the cafe and tells them that she was hacked and the person did it locally, not remotely. After the first consultation, he calls Nami outside alone and plants the idea in her head that Yoon-ju could have done it. She comes back and asks her best friend since she was the only one that knew about the other account. This offends Yoon-ju, who leaves disappointed, warning Nami to never contact her again. As she leaves crying, the stalker hides nearby, laughing. Meanwhile, Jiman salvaged some evidence and shows it to Young-ho, who pleads with him to call it in so that he doesn't look like he's covering for his son. He suggests that they go to his son's repair shop to start with. The duo get there, and the majority of the evidence has been cleared, but the repair forms are plastered all over the place, and all the names are his victims. But the senior detective remembers seeing Nami's name on the notepad. All the while, Nami cries in her room watching her friend's old videos. When it goes off, she throws the phone, which smashes the screen. It dawns on her that the phone repairer could have hacked her phone, so she gets the police to come and search the place. She walks in on the officers looking for her form. After both parties explain the situation, they work together to catch him. Nami comes up with a plan to lure him. Since her phone is off, the stalker is blind. However, the officers don't disclose just how dangerous the target is to her. She thinks he's just a perv. Nami invites Junyong to her place. The guy gets a haircut and does away with the glasses to impress her. He arrives in her father's car, and the officers wait for him to move. He calls her to confirm his arrival, but he notices Jiman through his phone screen and begins to walk away, but Young-ho blocks him. The senior officer shouts at his son and points his gun at him to turn around. When he does, they put their guns down because they think they got the wrong person. The officers apologize and let him go. He gets out of sight just before Nami looks out of the window, so she misses the opportunity to confirm that he was their man. Jun-young later texts her saying he couldn't make it because something came up. They regroup and wait for the next opportunity to catch him. Given the nature of the situation, they decide that she should stay with someone. So she makes her way to her father's house after switching to her second phone, thinking that it has not been corrupted. Before they leave her, she tells them that she will be in constant contact, and if they don't hear from her, that means something happened. She writes a note for them to read. She makes her way inside and checks to see her dad sleeping. Nami goes to her room when she gets a message from Jun-young commenting on her getting a new phone. He asks her to call him. A look of dread washes over her face as she hears the phone vibrating above her. She rushes to her dad's room to check, and it's filled with pillows to make it look like someone was sleeping. She tries to call the detective, but to her shock, the number keeps deleting. Another wave of dread hits her again when she realizes that her second phone was hacked too. She comes out weapon in hand, but Jun-young neutralizes her by showing a picture of her dad in a bad situation. Meanwhile, Jung-ho gets a call which causes him to stop his car suddenly. He tells Ji-man that they found his son's remains. Back at the house, Jun-young scolds Nami for ruining his plans. She promises to do anything if he lets her father go, so he requests that she ends her father. But before that, he overheard that she must be in constant communication, so he forces her to send a message to the officers telling them that she is going to bed. After sending it, she throws the piece of paper she wrote on onto the floor. He explains that he has no particular reason for doing this apart from the fact he found her phone. He pretends to need the washroom, so Nami takes a fire poke ready to ambush him, but he takes too long in the bathroom. She enters to find her dad tied in the bath with water. He makes her tie her own feet before he fully immobilizes her. Jun-young covers her mouth before throwing her into the bath. The rise in water level causes both of them to start drowning. The stalker takes a picture of her before going to the living room to wait for them to leave the world. However, he notices the piece of paper and reads what she wrote. The lady informed the officers that all checks will be done via call. Jun-young looks outside to see the officers closing in on the house. He hides and tries to attack Jung-ho, but he's caught by Ji-man, who starts beating him before dragging and cuffing him. He asks where's his son. The imposter tries to play mind games, calling him dad, before showing him to his suitcase. He opens to find all the information on his victims, and his son is one of them. The stalker ended him and used his name to commit the crimes. Ji-man checks his son's phone to find the screensaver as his lifeless body. The father goes to shoot the imposter, but restrains himself. All the while, Jung-ho removes the father and daughter from the bath and tries to resuscitate the father. Nami cuts herself loose with her pocket knife. She picks up the officer's gun and shoots her stalker. Moments later, her dad regains consciousness. The police arrive, and they are rushed to the hospital. In the aftermath, Nami rekindles her friendship with Yoonju as they work at the cafe along with her father. However, a group who are angry about her other Instagram page lurk around watching her as they take pictures. And with that, the movie comes to an end. The next movie is called Red Dot. David graduates as a civil engineer. His girlfriend Nadja attends to support him whilst being a bit too zealous with her cheering. The graduates have a little party to celebrate their achievements. The couple gets some alone time as she congratulates him again. He thanks her for the support and patience since they have had to be long distance while he studied. As they discuss their move to Stockholm, David excuses himself to use the restroom. He hides in a cubicle to make a call to the radio station they were listening to before he left. He fumbles his words a bit, but proposes to her live on radio. Some might call it romantic, while others will say he lacks a backbone not popping the question in person. As he emerges out of his safe space, Nadja is standing there waiting for him. At first it seems like she might be mad about the manner of the proposal, but she laughs it off and accepts it. An old man just pops out of a nearby cubicle to congratulate them. 1.5 years later after their engagement, and the honeymoon phase seems like it's already over. Nadja frustratedly tries to shut a washing machine door that seems to be faulty. She rudely asks David for help while he plays some Battlefield on the PlayStation. She rants on about how she's studying to be a doctor and not a housewife. It turns into an argument, so Nadja sends the dirty clothes to a public laundry. With a worried look on her face, she flashes back to a happier moment with David, but she's snapped back to reality when their neighbor Thomas also comes to do his laundry. Nadja apologizes because she has taken his slot. She tries to stop the wash in order to come back later, but he insists she let it finish. She suddenly vomits, and Thomas worriedly asks if she's okay. She reveals that she is pregnant, but he's not to let David know. She's not sure if they are fit to be parents because David is not very supportive, so all the burden will be on her. Thomas imparts some wise words about the beauty of child rearing. Nadja apologizes for bringing the topic up because he has lost his. He assures her that they are going to be amazing parents before giving her a hug. One morning, David leaves her breakfast in bed with a note instructing her to meet him in the bathroom. She enters to find the washing machine fixed, and then follows a series of notes outside where David awaits. He apologizes for his neglect, before handing over an envelope which has reservations for Bear Valley, a hiking and camping trip under the northern lights. He has called in sick from work, so that they can spend some time together and work on their relationship. With their dog Boris, they begin their trip to the mountains. Nadja's pregnancy sickness makes her vomit along the way, but she still hasn't alerted her husband, so she explains it as car sickness. The couple stop at a fuel station. While Nadja fills the car up, David goes inside to pay. Jarmo and Role also pull in their pickup to refuel. The former makes his way into the shop while Rola has some small talk with David about dogs. He aggressively plays with Boris and comments on Nadja's beauty, which makes him uncomfortable. The stranger also makes his way into the shop. Meanwhile, Boris pulls David towards their car where he spots a decapitated reindeer's head along with a rifle in the back. He quickly gets into his car where he alerts his wife on what he just saw. As the couple leave, they crash into the pickup. Nadja suggests they alert them, but David disagrees, stating the guys will not notice before driving off. Later that night, they arrive at the Bear Valley Inn, but they get a hostile reception from Mona. She storms off to the back of the bar to their confusion. Einar comes out and apologizes on her behalf, explaining she doesn't take kindly to strangers, so it's nothing personal. He jokes around with them while briefing them on the trail. David is on edge when he sees the guys from the fuel station sitting around. They give them some looks but don't act on it. The couple stay at the inn for the night. The following morning, they notice that their car has been vandalized and immediately attribute it to Jarmo and Role. Nadja complains that they should have alerted them back at the gas station. She notices their truck packed outside, so decides to scratch it with a screwdriver. Rolo comes out at the right time, or the wrong time depending on how you see it. Nevertheless, Nadja is caught in her act. He releases his dog to attack Nadja, but she manages to make it back into the car just in time. David speeds off while she laughs, filled with adrenaline, pretty high-risk behavior for someone who's preggo. They arrive at the start of the trail and set off into the wilderness with Boris. The couple ski their way through, enjoying the breathtaking views as they start to reconnect. Nadja gets exhausted later on, so they decide to set up camp. The couple have a fun time setting up the tent, as David claims to have memorized the instructions. That night, luck is on their side because the northern lights are out. The place is quiet, so David starts to howl like a wolf, but his wife is not really amused. He tries to have a moment with her, but she interrupts him and finally lets him know that she's pregnant. David is shocked but happy about the news. Nadja puts a bit of a downer on his joy by asking if they should really be keeping it. She interrupts him again when she notices a red dot from a laser in their tent. Boris starts to also get agitated. Nadja calls out to the unknown person doing it but gets no response, so she decides to go outside to confront the person. David joins her as she calls out again. After a moment of silence, the dot appears once more, but this time it moves to Nadja's back when she turns around. Her husband moves her out the way, but it migrates to him when he starts shouting more aggressively. It continues to jump between the two as they get more agitated. David even pushes Nadja out the way when it starts to point at her stomach. The couple decide to quickly pack their things to move when the dot appears in their tent once again. Boris runs off into the darkness, agitated when they all hear a man whistling. Shortly after, a gunshot can be heard from the distance. They fear for the worst, but they don't get a chance to comprehend when another gunshot rips through their tent, shattering their light. Now in complete darkness, the couple leave their belongings and begin to run for their lives as the gunshots keep coming. Things get a whole lot worse when flares light up the night sky, leaving them completely exposed. Engine revving can be heard approaching them with more shots, but they manage to get to a nearby wooded area where they take cover. David can hear the engines from 2 vehicles, so he assumes that must be their number. Nadja concludes that it must be the 2 guys from earlier back to take their revenge. They hear Boris bark, so Nadja tries to go to his location, but David holds her back. The dog can be heard whining. The couple are forced to move once again when the engine revs start to get closer. They find some shelter in an empty barn where they hunker down for the night. By the following morning, the intense cold has almost frozen them. Nadja suggests they go straight to their car, but David proposes they go back to their tent where they can get their things and call the police. They make their way through the heavily fogged area back to their tent. David asks his wife to lay low while he checks for potential danger around their campsite. He enters and lets out a shout, and then exits vomiting. Nadja quickly rushes over. As she gets closer, blood can be seen around. David tries to prevent his wife from entering inside, but she does so anyway, only to find their dog's head detached from its body. In a fit of rage, she promises to kill the culprits while screaming, but David quietens her down as she is just giving away their location. She starts blaming themselves for leaving Boris to die. He goes back in to try and find the car keys, but he gets his arm caught in a trap when he tries to move their dog's head. Nadja releases him and ties the wound to stop him from bleeding out. They decide to trace their tracks back to their car while freezing. They move through the snow and notice someone watching them from a distance. Gunshots soon follows, which forces them to the ground. The couple try to crawl to the woods while under suppression fire. David notices that it takes around 10 seconds between each shot. He recalls seeing the weapon in the car of those guys. He suggests they make a dash for the woods just after a shot is fired. However, David gets popped because he is not able to move effectively due to his injury. As he winces in pain on the floor, he sees a silhouette of someone in a yellow jacket. He quickly gets up and makes a dash into the woods. Nadja finally turns around to check for her husband after dashing faster than Usain Bolt. She calls for him, but the strong wind just carries her voice away. As she walks, she hears a cracking sound, and it dawns on her that she's on a frozen lake and immediately lies down to spread her body weight. David finally gets to the same area, but he is unaware of the situation under his feet, so he falls through the ice just as he gets close to his wife. She hears his last call and immediately traces back to his location, where she pulls him from the icy water. Now wet and cold, they walk till nightfall, where they come across an emergency cabin. The couple quickly makes their way inside, where Nadja lights the lantern and undresses her husband in order to get him warm. She then uses the emergency phone in the cabin to call mountain rescue for help. They assure her that help will arrive as soon as the storm subsides. She makes a fire and tends to David's wounds. With the hope of help coming, they joke around a little about Nadja's medical attention skills before David gets some rest, given the trauma they have just been through. Nadja uses a stethoscope to determine if her baby survived. To her relief, she hears a heartbeat. David is up by this point and also wants to listen. The following morning, the storm has subsided, and they are woken up by the engine of mountain rescuers. Their excitement turns to dread when they realize that their rescuer is none other than Jarmo, one of their suspect attackers. They escape through the back window, making their way into the woods as he approaches the door. David stumbles all over the place while Nadja spots some cover and drags her husband to hide inside. Jarmo follows while calling to them. He reaches their location, and at the same time, the couple realize that they are hiding inside a bear's hibernation chamber. The rescuer notices them, but Nadja shoots a flare which causes him to fire as he falls. They quickly evacuate from the chamber in fear that the loud sound has woken the bear. Jarmo's coat also begins to burn as he tries to put it out. The couple march on to find safety, while David's condition worsens. He begins to hear screams and starts to see a boy in a yellow jacket. At this point, Nadja has also spotted a house, but before they proceed, David states that this whole event is a sign that they shouldn't have the baby, because they don't deserve it. His wife calms him down, alerting him that they will do the right thing by going to the police when they get out of this mess. Nadja walks ahead a little when she spots a snowmobile. Rolly startles her when he emerges from behind. She falls to the floor as he asks what happened. David assumes him to be a danger and kills Rolla by knocking a rock over his head. After catching a body, they rush to the vehicle and proceed to the house. Upon arrival, they barge in when they don't get a response at the door. She sits him in the kitchen while she calls to the residents of the home. Einar rushes down and Nadja pleads for him to call for help. She overhears his call, and it isn't to 911. It seems like he's rather alerting someone of their location. Realizing that he might be liaising with their attackers, Nadja tries to leave with her husband, but Einar chases them down with a knife. They escape into a room and are shocked to see pictures of themselves doing various activities on the wall. It all becomes clear what is going on when they find pictures of a young boy. Thomas enters the room with a rifle as he monologues about his dead son. He asks them to explain themselves. Things flash back to the day David proposed to Nadja. High on the good news, his wife-to-be tries to seduce him while he's driving. This causes David to lose concentration, hitting a child. Nadja rushes to check, but he's already dead. She returns to tell David, but he keeps driving to her confusion. They don't alert the police and carry on living their lives, but with guilt. We see the same event from Thomas's perspective. He was using a drone to play with his child. His son follows it through the woods, but he's too busy looking at it to realize that he's on the road now and that a car is approaching. Thomas watches in horror as they hit his son and leave without reporting the accident. He later reviews the footage from his drone, which captured the car's license plate. With a quick search, he found the couple and surveyed them while they lived like nothing happened. He then moved into the apartment building opposite and befriended them. Soon after hearing that Nadja was pregnant, he booked the hiking trip for the couple so that he could exact his revenge. He was the one hunting them, not Jarmo and Rola. He gets them on their knees as they try to apologize for what they did. He responds by knocking Nadja out. She wakes up tied up with her husband holding the drill. Einar has been calling his sister, but she hasn't answered. He pleads with Thomas to let them go as they have suffered enough, but he refuses. He holds the couple at gunpoint and requests that David drill into his wife's stomach. He shoots him in the leg when he doesn't comply. As he prepares to shoot Nadja in the head, Jarmo from Mountain Rescue comes barging in and confused with what is going on. Thomas shoots Jarmo, which causes him to also fire, killing Einar. Jarmo tries to shoot again, but Thomas ends up wrestling him for the gun. The couple use this as an opportunity to escape. They hear gunshots while outside. David knows Thomas is on his way, so asks his wife to leave him as he will slow her down. She leaves but comes returning with Rollo's gun. While holding Thomas at gunpoint, she's suddenly shot in the head by Mona, who happens to be Thomas's wife, which explains her hostile reception. David cries in horror, pleading for them to kill him too, but Thomas leaves him alive so that he too can go through the pain he faced losing a child. That brings the movie to an end. The final movie is called Revenger. Reports come in of Interpol agent Kim Yule, killing known gang members as retribution for the loss of his wife and daughter. He's been sentenced to permanent isolation on an island full of criminals called AP-101. Sounds like paradise. Meanwhile, on the island, young Jin gets chased by a bunch of men through the thick jungle, but the kid's mom comes in clutch, killing few of their pursuers with some well-placed arrows. They manage to make their way to the beach where the mom is forced to face the army of men alone. This is what they mean by chivalry is dead. She succeeds in taking out a few, but she's ultimately overpowered due to their numbers. Their target seems to be the little girl as they continue their chase after her. The men are interrupted when Yule arrives on the island in a mask and a stray jacket. Some say this is where Bane got his inspiration from. These guys give him the island paradise welcome, attacking him with their machetes, but he expertly evades and takes them all out while bound. During that interval, the mother struggles against a brute, but Yule comes in and beats him while asking him for the location of Kuhn, but the guy laughs at the newcomer. He rounds house, kicks him to the face when he realizes the guy is not going to tell him. As Mr. Newcomer begins to walk away, the girl sees that her mommy is badly injured, so tries to get Yule's attention to help them by telling him that she knows Kuhn's location. As she undoes his stray jacket, Jin lets him know that all they want in return is that he escorts them back to their base camp. The ex-agent agrees, so she leads him there without incident. However, upon arrival, the resident berates the kid for bringing a stranger to their camp, but she explains the situation, so they take the injured mom, also known as Meili, for treatment. Meanwhile, Bao holds a quick meeting with the rest of the group where they decide to kill Yule. However, Jin intervenes, but they dismiss the little girl. They try to intimidate him by doing some sort of haka dance, but he seems more confused than scared. She interrupts again, asking them to stop fooling around and help her wake Grandpa, who is the crazy medic of the camp. One of the guys pretends to be his first love and reluctantly kisses him back to normal. Meanwhile, Yule walks around the camp where he gets offered food by a friendly child, but the adults are still not so welcoming. Back inside with Grandpa, he concludes that Mally has been poisoned and proceeds to begin treatment. Bao continues his scolding of Jin, but she professes that she will kill Kuhn for killing her dad. Big words for such a small girl. She points out that Yule is also looking for him too, so the men in the camp grab their weapons to question him again, thinking he's a spy of some sort. But Yule ignores them and sits on his new bed. A drunk Bao joins him later on and starts talking to him about the island and the challenges they face with Kuhn. He gets knocked out when he starts getting a little too close to Yule, who lies on his bed reminiscing about how his wife and daughter got killed. The following day, Molly's condition stabilizes. Her daughter excitedly rushes over to see her doing better. She fills in her mom on the events that occurred while she was out unconscious. She points out Yule as their savior. Molly immediately recognizes and approaches him with a stick, but he swats it away like he does the mosquitoes in the jungle. She reveals that he's the cop that put her on the island, but he's only interested in the location of Kuhn. Molly points him in the direction of a huge volcano. With that information, he immediately sets off. Shortly after, Jin follows him but gets caught in a trap, so she pleads for him to free her since she knows a shortcut, which he does. She questions him on his reasons for looking for Kuhn while she recalls his arrival on the island. Kuhn was the one responsible for killing the welcome party and was also the one who cut Bao's hand off. Meanwhile, in the present, the unlikely duo come across an open grave where someone Jin recognizes lies dying. She tries to help him, but some of Kuhn's men are also in the ditch pretending to be dead and grab her when they get the chance. A distracted Yul rather reminisces about his family when he sees a stuffed rabbit that resembles one that his daughter used to have. The people from base camps are also in the area looking for Jin. Yul calmly makes his way to a cell block where screams emanate from. Upon entering, he sees hands from the cells reach out looking for help. He encounters some of the guards pigging out on some rice, so he proceeds to beat them when they attack him. Yul continues on his rampage as he moves through the building until he eventually reaches the room Jin was taken to. There, he beats more men like he's on easy mode, only finding a slight challenge when faced with the captain of the outpost, but he still takes him out, saving the little girl. The ex-agent asks Jin to go back to her mum, who flashes back to the events of her dad's death. In the interim, Yul questions one of the conscious guards on the location of their boss. Unbeknownst to him, another guard is also conscious and prepares to attack, but Mally takes him out before he can do so. She notices the stuffed rabbit and takes it from Yul, and then leaves when it becomes apparent that her daughter is not around. While the rest follow suit, Bao apologizes for this tomfoolery when he sees what Yul is capable of. One of Kuhn's men goes to inform his boss of what happened. He kills the messenger and orders his remaining forces to track and kill Yul. Kuhn's right-hand woman Kaori finds Jin, however. The ex-agent gets to her in time, but not without being grazed by an arrow. They make their way into a nearby building, but Kaori's team surround it. They let in a flurry of arrows in, yet Yul moves through using a chair as cover. Molly stays out of sight just outside looking for an opening to help as the aggressors pursue through the building. This gives the mum a chance to start picking them off. Yul takes a direct hit with an arrow before they get fully distracted. Molly and Kaori have a shoot-off, but Mummy comes out on top when she hits her with an arrow to the throat. She goes through the building and finds her daughter with a poisoned Yul. Molly uses some berries to give emergency treatment. However, given his condition, he'll need the grandpa treatment. The rest of the group catch up, but things take a turn for the worse when an army of Kuhn's men appear. Bao and one other from the group decide to bait their attackers away, while the others escape. They manage to get Yul back to the camp where Grandpa begins treatment. All the while, Bao and his partner are caught by some traps set by Kuhn's men. Unfortunately for them, they are later picked up, but the other guy is killed while they let Bao go. He makes his way back to camp where Kuhn's men tail him, resulting in them finding their hideout. After a brief standoff, the inevitable fight breaks out when they kill a beloved member of the camp. The members of base camp seem to be at a disadvantage as they have inferior weapons compared to their opponents, but Molly tries her best as she takes out a sizable amount of their men. Bao just watches in agony as many of his friends get killed in front of him. Even women and children are not spared. Meanwhile, Jin tries to wake up a still unconscious Yul as the massacre rages on. The leader of the group, Jargal, taunts Bao before facing Molly in combat. The tired mum is unable to land a hit as he easily evades, with her attempt ending in her being knocked to the floor. As he walks over to finish her, Bao comes in launching his own set of attacks. But he's also knocked down. He gets back up and slashes Jargal's back with his hook, which just annoys him. When Bao attacks one more time, he slices him in the chest, taking him down. Jargal's attention then turns to Molly as he violently swings to end her, but she manages to somehow dodge. The mother even musters the strength to attack, though this is nullified when he counters and cuts her on the back before giving her a devastating kick to the face. He tries to finish her off with a stab, but Bao rushes and takes the blow. Elsewhere in the medic tent, Grandpa randomly faints and dies. The commotion outside leads Jin to step out where she sees her mother on the floor, so she tries to attack Jargal, but he grabs her hand and starts to move it towards the kid's neck. Just when all hope is lost, Yul appears from the medic tent, but it's not really a hero's entrance as he stumbles down to where the action is. That quickly changes when they try to attack him. He disarms one of the fodder attackers, takes his sword, and proceeds to cut them down expertly, leaving the two members of Kuhn's inner circle. Yul faces the both of them simultaneously, easily defending their attacks as they try hard to end him, but he gains the upper hand and swiftly kills Jargal. With only one left, he himself knows he is no match for Yul, but he still attacks. The inevitable happens after a valiant effort. He's disarmed and cut down. At least he didn't go out like a bitch. The mother and daughter watch on, shocked with the result. Yul just grabs a spare top, turns back to look at his handiwork before leaving the camp. He heads towards the volcano to face his nemesis Kuhn. Meanwhile, the villain knows his guest is coming, so gets ready in his Sunday's best to receive him. Yul arrives at the hideout and continues to just beat his way to the top, eventually reaching the final boss. Kuhn, with a fresh set of bandages, sits waiting while taking a few pulls. With a menacing look, Yule opens some steel mesh gates ready to lay the beat down. Now that he sets eyes on Yule, the boss recognizes him instantly, but laughs off his declaration to kill him for the sins he committed against his family. The two men face off with their deadly fists as their weapon of choice. Yule gets the first takedown, but Kun recovers quickly, but he's soon on the floor again, blocking a barrage of punches. Things are just not looking good for the island boy at the moment, as the ex-agent has him in a rear neck choke, but he manages to break free when he uses a concealed knife to stab Yule's arm. He then tries to end it by stabbing him, but after a brief struggle, the ex-agent succeeds in breaking free. With Kun fully committed to using the knife, Yule undoes some of his hand wraps to use as defense against the knife. The ex-agent uses it skillfully to neutralize the weapon and also tries to get the choke finisher, but Kun is no pushover, so manages to break free. Yule keeps up the pressure, knocking him down again. The bandaged bandit grabs some herbs to get a quick heal, but it doesn't really help. This guy thinks he's on Skyrim. Yule entertains him briefly with a punch-out, but that doesn't last long when he wins that too. Kun just holds a menacing smile while he tries one last attack. However, Yule pins him down and headbutts him to Valhalla. With his revenge fulfilled, he makes his way out. The menace is gone, so peace reigns on the island. But Yule is nowhere to be found. Jin speculates that he might have made it off the island alive, which might be true because he's later shown overlooking a cliff where a ship can be seen in the distance. Yule gathers himself and makes his way over to the shore, with the movie ending on that literal cliffhanger.